I'm an ism. And when I began to look even more closely at this, and I began to dig deeper, I realized that the reason why people become difficult and the reason this anger is present is that there are generally, in my experience, that there are 4 basic needs that people have. Now, we all have these needs, specifically at the workplace and in life as well, that we all have these needs. But what happens is difficultness comes out of these needs not being met. And these are the needs that I've identified. The first need that most of us have, or at least like to have, is the need to be right. Right? Is there anybody here who doesn't like to be right? Okay, right? We all like to be right. Now, the place where this becomes a problem with a difficult person is that the need to be right is so strong that you now get defensiveness. Or you get blame. You know, well, you're the problem because I have to be right, so you have to be the problem. So they view it like a seesaw. So that need to be right expands so largely that they have huge triggers around that. And so for that person, if you say to them, for instance, that they're wrong about something, they start to breathe heavy, right? Because that trigger has been ignited. So with that kind of person, one thing you want to do is you never ever want to say to them that they're wrong. Why? Because it's like flipping a switch for them. And so that need to be right gets ignited. And they actually need to blame more, and they actually need to prove to you how wrong you are and how right they are. It's a never-ending cycle with those people. So your best bet with that kind of person, short of drugging them or putting, valerium or something, Valium in their water, short of doing, or psychotherapy. Let's face it, many of these people need therapy. And they're just, it's true, and they're just not going to get it. And since you can't drug them and they're not going to therapy, this is part of what you have to realize to quell the interaction with them a little bit. And so with this kind of person, unfortunately, you have to allow them the possibility of being right. Because when you do, what happens is that right button comes down, their need to be right feels quelled, and all is well again. And so one of the language pieces that I like to use with those people is, you know what, you may be right about that. That's the language I like to use. You may be right about that. Because the possibility of rightness calms them down. And so, and if you know that they're wrong, but you don't want to say that, what you could say is, you know what, you may be right, that's a possibility, but let me introduce another thought for you. So, and you don't want to use the word but with them. You may be right, but, So, because the whole but negates everything you just said. So, eliminate the but, allow the possibility of rightness, and then introduce your idea on top of what they've said instead of it. And then they'll be less defensive and possibly more open to what you have to say.